Creating web pages. A markup language is a computer language that's used to provide instructions on how to display a document. Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML, is a markup language that's used to create web pages. Let's take a look at an example of an HTML document to understand its syntax. Syntax refers to the rules for combining parts of a language. Here's a document called helloworld.html. The file extension of an HTML document is either HTML or HTM. Both are equivalent. An HTML document is a text document. HTML documents contain codes called tags. HTML tags can indicate a wide range of elements, from headings to paragraphs to checkboxes that allow user input. Tags are enclosed in angle brackets. This document contains HTML, head, title, and body tags. Tags specify how the data in a document is treated by the web browser. For example, the title tag tells the browser to make a simple HTML file the title of this web page. Tags usually come in pairs of opening and closing tags. The opening and closing tag are identical, except for the closing tag, which must include a / immediately after the opening bracket. Here we see the opening and closing body tags. An element refers to an opening and closing pair of tags and any data between the opening and closing tags. For example, the body element consists of the opening and closing body tags in lines 5 and 7, as well as the data between the tags in line 6. The data in line 6 is called the element content. The element content is just the information contained between an element's opening and closing tags. You might notice that the first and last lines of this document are the opening and closing HTML tags. These opening and closing HTML tags, and everything between them, is known as a root element, since it contains every other element in the document. Now let's take a look at this document in a web browser. To do that, I'll select the file name, right-click it, and from the drop-down menu, I'll choose Firefox. As we can see, the output of this web page is Hello World, and the title is a simple HTML file. To summarize, tags contain formatting instructions on how data in the document will be treated by the browser. An element is a tag pair in any data it contains. And an element content is the material between the opening and closing tags of an element. The root element contains all other elements in a document. Two other important elements are the head and body elements. The head element is placed at the beginning of an HTML document, after the opening HTML tag. The title element contains text that appears in a browser tab or title bar. A head element must contain a title element. The title element is the only part of the head element that's visible when the web page is displayed. Following the head element is the body element. The body element and all the text and elements it contains is known as the document body. Some elements, known as empty elements, don't require a closing tag. For example, the BR element causes text to move down to the next line, but doesn't have a corresponding closing tag. HTML isn't case sensitive, but it's conventional to use lowercase letters for HTML elements anyway. There are hundreds of HTML elements. Here are some commonly used elements. Article marks the main content of a web document, and body marks the body of an HTML document. Div marks a generic section of the web page body, and head marks the page header and contains information about the entire page. H1, H2, H3, all the way to H6 mark heading level elements. H2 is a subheading of H1, and H3 is a subheading of H2, and so on. HTML marks the content of an HTML document. An IMG inserts an image file. Nav marks navigation options, such as a navigation bar at the top or bottom of a page or along its side. And P identifies the marked text as a paragraph. HTML attributes are used to provide additional information about many HTML elements. Let's take a look at an example. Here's a more involved HTML file, which can also be found on page 8 of your book. We see the head element in lines 3 through 11 and the body element starting in line 12, but note that the closing body tag is cut off somewhere after line 32. Take a look at line 15. It contains the opening image tag, indicated by IMG, followed by the SRC attribute, which is src equals images/natoma.gif. The src attribute of an image element specifies the file name of an image. In line 15, we would say that the value images/natoma.gif is being assigned to the src attribute of the image element. Like in this example, to assign a value to an attribute, use the syntax attribute equals value, like src equals images/natoma.gif. Just be sure to enclose the value in quotations. Creating an HTML document. There are several tools for creating HTML documents. Since HTML files are text files, a text editor such as Notepad or TextEdit is capable of creating HTML files. When you use these programs, you can't view the final results until you open the document in a web browser. Some web development tools, like Adobe Dreamweaver and Microsoft Visual Studio, have graphical user interfaces that let you create web pages and immediately view the results. However, for the purposes of our class, we'll be sharpening our skills by creating the code ourselves, using text editors created for coding. These are non-graphical programs that number our lines of code for us and color code the text of our code based on meaning. Many text editors are available for free. I recommend Notepad++ for PC users, available at notepad-plus-plus.org, and Aquamax for Mac users, available at aquamax.org. Please download one of these programs or any alternative you're comfortable with, and let me know if you have any questions about the installation process. One final note. HTML5 is the current version of HTML. Before HTML5, a different specification, known as Extensible Hypertext Markup Language, or XHTML, was seen as the future language for web development. But developers failed to embrace XHTML due in part to its overly rigid syntax rules. HTML5 has replaced XHTML as the standard for most web pages going forward, and the exercises in our book are written in HTML5.